This is your MLS Week 4 Power Rankings reaction show. We're going to go through all 27 teams in Major League Soccer, one by one, give them the proper time. We're going to start with number 1, and that means we start with the Seattle Sounders. Steve ZAKUANI is here. He knows this team as well as anybody. Steve, are you there, man? How do you feel about the Sounders being the top team in Major League Soccer after Week 4?
Yes, I'm here. Thanks for having me. And to be completely honest, I'm surprised. I didn't expect it, but they're playing so well that it shouldn't be a surprise.
That surprise is interesting. Doyle, I might be cutting you off the same question you're going to ask here. We had you on the show, Steve, on Extra Time, driven by Continental Tire, numerous times, and we all said it, and we all look kind of silly now that we thought this team was going to take a step backward. Do you feel like, what do you feel was missing in that moment when we all sort of doubled down on that?
Well, they didn't have a great offseason, lost a lot of experienced players. And then you look at the Jordan Morris injury, and then word comes out that Lodero's going to be injured. You're talking about 3 or 4 key players who aren't going to be a part of it. But this is mostly down to coaching, formation change, the personnel they've inserted into it, giving Christian Roldan a new role. It's all worked out quite well. And they're doing this with Rui Diaz, who's not 100% fit yet. He's still catching up. And they haven't had their best player, Lodero. So when he comes back, they're going to be even better. And I probably feel as good about this 2021 Sounders team as I felt about a Sounders team for a very, very long time. And that says a lot.
Steve, it's coaching. It's also culture, right? Because we're seeing players. I mean, Kellen Rowe played one of the best games I've ever seen him play in MLS. And like he's a guy who always had a world of talent, but didn't bring it to bear for any of the past 3 years, and he's been able to step in and give good minutes. Josh Atencio, before he picked up a little knock, was giving good minutes coming through that academy pipeline. Alex Roldan was considered, a marginal MLS prospect, had to make a position change, and now it looks like he's been playing right wing back his entire life. Brian Schmetzer gets and deserves a ton of credit, but it feels like just the culture of the Sounders is one of responsibility and next man up. And if you're old enough, you're good enough. And I'm not sure that was always there with this team the past couple of years. It seems like almost like a new era, even though so many of the old faces are around.
Yeah, absolutely right. Everything you said. And I think the thing that underpins that even more is since day one, there's always been a winning culture. It's a franchise that's never missed the playoffs, and that can't be said enough. Since day one, we came in, started winning trophies right away, making the playoffs, and that's the benchmark. The expectation when you come in through that door, the guys who've been there, the likes of Stefan Fry and now Christian Roldan, some of the experienced players, you have to win. You have to win if you're part of the Sounders. And whether you're doing that through a youth movement or you've got big stars like Clint Dempsey, it doesn't really matter. The standard is if you're in Rave Green, you have to win. I think that bleeds into the people, the way they approach training, the way you go about your daily routine. Once you're a member of the Sounders, it all seeps in. But even with that said, I don't think anyone would have thought 10 points on 4 games, especially with the schedule we've played. It's been a tough schedule. So overachieving maybe a little bit, but I actually think they're going to get even better.
All right, well, look, it could have been 3 takes for Diego Valeri. Bites of that apple. Didn't happen. Big win in Portland. That was a bizarre one. Go check out the replay if you want more on that one. But this is a huge win for Seattle in a game that they needed to win because Portland is coming off CCL. I thought something you said was interesting there, which is Christian Roldan. And I've been watching him real closely this year, Steve. And I love what I see there. And I hate the cross-sport references, but he does just feel like, he feels to me like a basketball point guard that can both dominate with the ball, but is just as good without the ball, sort of like directing traffic with his movement, setting up others. What's the role in your mind that Brian Schmetzer has given him?
Christian Roldan is brilliant, man. I really love this kid. And before this season, I'd have said his best role is part of the 2 in a 4-2-3-1, a defensive mid, holding mid, sort of a bit box to box. But he's been unleashed in the number 10 role because without Nico, you had to find someone who could cover the same ground Nico covers, but in a different way. Christian's best work is running off the ball into the spaces behind the back line from deep. And then once he gets into those channels in the wide areas or even centrally, he's really good on the ball. He's strong. He can keep possession, keeps it simple, can put in a good cross. But his biggest strength right now is obviously his engine. He's very, very fit. But it's the timing of his runs. He makes late runs beyond the back line, forces the opposing D-mid to have to track him all over the pitch because he has a great engine. And look, when Ladero comes back, there's no question. The team's going to go through him. He's the number 10. But I wouldn't be surprised to see Christian get a lot more minutes in an advanced role than maybe would have expected before the season started.
That's one of the things that I've been thinking, because we've seen Brian Schmetzer use Nico Ladero deeper in the past as part of the two in that 4-2-3-1. And obviously it's a different formation now with a 3-5-2, or really a 3-4-1-2. Is there a chance that we could see a little bit of positional fluidity between Roldan and Ladero, where maybe Ladero is more in that Atencio role from the first couple of games, and Brian Schmetzer keeps Christian Roldan as that nominal number 10 and gives him the opportunity to, keep pulling defenses apart with his off-the-ball movement and creating space for the likes of Will Bruin and Raul Ruiz-Diaz and both wingbacks, and eventually, coming up, Nico Ladero.
I would love to say yes, but it's not going to happen for these reasons. The reason Christian Roldan can do the running and things he does is because you have Joao Paulo and Atencio and now Kellen Rowe. You have two guys behind him sitting. If Nico's in that role, he's not sitting because Nico has no position. You say he starts, right of the three attacking mids or central. Nico's going to go wherever he wants, whenever he wants, and there's nothing anyone can say about it because he's that good on the ball. So if you have Christian Roldan doing his running and Nico's also running, you're giving Joao Paulo a lot of ground to cover defensively, and so that won't happen. So because of that, I more likely will see Christian Roldan alongside Joao Paulo with Nico Ladero in front of them, and the only alteration you can see is maybe you play Joao Paulo with Atencio or Kellen Rowe and Christian and Nico as attacking mids, but then you're going down to one forward, and then good luck keeping Will Bruin and Freddie Montero on the bench.
Oh, boy. Let me ask you this, Steve. I know you're a winger, tried and true, stay high, man, but come on, you would have loved to play these wingback roles, right? So much space to run into. You would have killed people.
Listen, you lost me when you used the word back. There's no back for me, so no. There's no wing back. No way.
Track back, wing back, none of this stuff is in Steve's vocabulary. Last one for you, man. We got a big game coming up on Wednesday for the Sounders, 10:30 p.m. Eastern in San Jose, MLS Live on ESPN+. This is a San Jose team that, though sometimes we scratch our heads about the style of play, it's working for them. Cade Cowell is working. What do you see in this matchup?
Yeah, it's a scary one. It's a scary one. I think it's the first real test to see where the Sounders stand because you're coming off a pretty emotional win at the weekend. You're going into a team that's also flying, very confident. They're coming off a very big win. Wando's still doing what he does. I've always liked Almeida's coaching. I think at times it's taken him a while to get used to MLS. He may have figured it out this year. We'll see. Time will tell. But it's about the teenager. It's about Cade Cowell. I mean, he's fantastic. I saw bits of him last year, and I thought he was a decent player, but the things he's done this year, I didn't think he had in his game. So seeing him up close would be good for me to see as well. But if you're the Sounders and you go to San Jose and you win a midweek game after just winning at the weekend, now it's 5 games without defeat, you're sitting at the top, you're going to feel pretty good about it. And the way the Sounders get it done, I think, is very similar to how I did it on the weekend. It's going to be a lot of running, a lot of movement, and depending on your big-time players to make plays, which Ruiz-Diaz did, of course, with the first goal and the penalty, and then Montero off the bench to score as well.
All right, we're looking forward to this one. It's going to be a fun one on ESPN+. Steve, thank you for your time, man. I hope kickboxing was good this morning. ZAKUANI11 on Twitter. Always love chatting with you, man.
It was a pleasure. Thanks, guys.
All right, let's keep it rolling here. Remember, go to MLSsoccer.com or the MLS app to check out the MLS Power Rankings for Week 4. At the top was the Seattle Sounders, number 1. They did not move at all. They stayed rooted right there. Columbus Crew are number 2. And you see right there, that's a new Mark Doyle, and there's a lot of news being made around that right now and the reaction from Crew supporters. Let's talk about the on-the-field side of things, because we didn't really talk about them at all on Extra Time on Monday. There were just too many other games that demanded our time. But a 3-1 win against DC United. The big performer in this one was own goal. Really, just absolutely a breathtaking performance from own goal. 2 on the night for the Crew. What did you make of this performance, this game? It just seemed business-like to me. Like, this is what we expected the Crew to be. Even after disappointment in CCL, they managed to buck the trend, come back, get a win.
Yeah, and that was important. Getting a multi-goal win, even if all 3 goals were kind of a gift. And I know that looks like a very nice free kick from Zelarayan, but Chris Seitz gave him, 40 or 85% of the goal to shoot at. That was just a really weird wall and placement from Chris Seitz. Columbus, they really haven't looked great in MLS this year. And I think that largely has to do with the early season CCL stuff. And they, I mean, they had a tough draw against Monterrey, and they gave Monterrey hell in that first game, and I thought we're the much better team. But then the late heartbreak, and then going on the road to Monterrey is tough. And to bounce back from that with a win, even if it was ugly and a little bit sloppy at times, that's what you want to see from a team that is a serious contender for multiple pieces of hardware. My mind hasn't been changed on that. I still think the Crew are one of the best teams in MLS, and I do think they need to start showing it, though, because if you look at their numbers in like every advanced attacking metric, they are at or near the bottom of the league. Shots on goal, shots inside the box, expected goals, all per 90 as well, not just totals, but per 90. It hasn't clicked for them in MLS, but we've already seen that from them in CCL. If they could bottle the way they played in that first leg against Monterrey, this team is going to be fine. This is going to be a 60-point team. But unfortunately, with the way the season started and the way they went out in CCL, like we were talking about this team having the potential to be one of the great all-time MLS teams. It doesn't feel like that's going to happen. And now maybe they flip a switch and they start just running off wins and they end up winning a treble at the end of the year. But haven't seen that type of thing from this Columbus group just yet.
Not yet, but I think they get the benefit of the doubt, and they certainly have in these power rankings. I mean, they're 6th in the Eastern Conference right now, only 2 back of New York City at the top, but to be 6th and to gain 2 spots in the power rankings up to number 2, yes, it was a 3-1 win against DC, but that tells you what the voters think about the Crew. They think that the ceiling is really high. We just haven't seen them, quote-unquote, climb the stairs and occupy that space regularly so far. We will see with the Columbus Crew. I believe they're in action in Toronto tomorrow, Wednesday, MLS Live on ESPN+.
That's a big one. That's a
ton of games tomorrow.
That one tomorrow is a big one because Columbus and Toronto both really need to figure it out a little bit in league play, and both of them are kind of running on dead legs a little bit given their early season workload.
All right, that's number 2 in the Week 4 power rankings. Number 3, NYCFC, whose fans are in my mentions, no doubt about it, because we didn't talk about them on Extra Time. They got a 1-1 draw in Orlando, and look, that's why. It's because the result was a little bit nondescript, blue side of New York. It's not because we don't respect you. A little PK to get the first one on the board, then they let Nani shoot with his right foot just outside the box, and when you let that happen, you are generally going to lose games, or at least tie games, give up goals, I should say. Doyle, it's a little surprising given what Ronnie Dyla said at the beginning of the season. Basically, he doesn't have enough players to compete. Well, they're competing pretty well right now.
They're competing very well, and the guy who you just saw pot the penalty kick right there, Tate Castellanos, he's arguably the second in early MVP balloting behind Chicharito. He has been fantastic for them, spearheading the press, obviously scoring goals as well, just being a nightmare to play against for opposing defenders. And that has kind of set the tone, and they've needed that because Maxi Morales, he missed this game. And in the past, if Maxi Morales was, going to miss a game, NYCFC were going to lose. So having Castellanos kind of raising the ceiling and then still having what has been a very good and very solid deep-lying midfield and defense, which Ronnie Dyla has, I think, rather cleverly kind of switched up into 3-1-4-2 over the past couple of games. So you have James Sands in the middle of that back three, and Chanot and Collins, and then a sort of a rotating cast of other defensive midfielders coming in. It has worked. It has worked. Now, it's not as pretty as we've seen from NYCFC in the past, but when you're playing with a short roster, which is what this is, it can't always be about pretty. It has to be about solid and opportunistic, and I think that's what we saw from NYCFC this weekend, and that's a great point on the road. And it was almost 3, right? If Pedro Gaese doesn't make that great late save on Jesus Medina, it's 3 more points against the Eastern Conference contender on the road for NYCFC. So I think the fans are right to be pretty thrilled.
Isn't that what they've been looking for years? Is that sort of stability and consistency and pragmatism in big games and big moments?
I mean, no, they're looking for someone who will finish that chance that Jesus Medina got. I think they've actually played pretty well in a lot of their big games. If you think back to that 2019 playoff match against Toronto FC, they were the better team. Like NYCFC were the better team, and they just had like these incredible brain farts. And then they missed chances.
Maybe
and
I think I was thinking back to like the Jovinko Toronto FC heyday, where in the playoffs they got it laid on them a couple different times. I mean, what are you going to do about last year? Last year, you're right. That is a matter of having the final touch, the final finish. Now, the problem is when you talk about NYCFC, yes, Heber's coming back, but maybe Castellanos is not sticking around.
Yeah.
There's a lot of rumors around him as far as Brazilian interest. So they've got a challenge coming for them this summer, both in additions, but also holding on to the pieces that are making them flow a little bit right now.
Yeah, and I mean, that's part of the thing that MLS teams are going to have to navigate. And if Castellanos is playing as well as he is right now, and he's been superb, then you probably have to come to the right number with him, or you probably have to cash in and, make
Reinvest.
the sale. Yeah, reinvest. And it's tough, but that is the job in MLS these days. Like every team in the league, every team in the world, except like 4 are selling teams. And anybody who is blind to that is probably doing themselves a disservice. And that's going to be a tough thing for NYCFC to kind of negotiate this year.
All right, NYCFC, number 3 in these power rankings. Let's keep it rolling. Tom Bogert is here. He broke the news on the Philadelphia Union's new attacking midfielder. They are number 4, up 3 spots in these Week 4 MLS power rankings. Tom, I'm going to leave it to you to tell me how to pronounce his name and give us a scouting report, man. Coming over from Honved in Hungary. We've seen that before. I'm blanking on the name, but Peter Vermees has mined that club in previous years.
Yeah, Daniel Gazdag. I'm going to wait for full confirmation on that until we hear one of the wonderful broadcasters say his name, rather than expressing how I'm reading it and interpreting the accent marks. But yeah, he's a Hungarian number 10. He's somebody who's played at Honved for his entire career, and his stats are pretty awesome, particularly this year. He had 13 goals and 6 assists for a team that kind of barely stayed out of relegation, and he was the real driving force behind it. He was one of the players of the year. I'd be surprised, based on what I've heard, if he's not voted the team of the season in Hungary. All of the local writers or fans or stuff that you've caught wind of will say that he's vastly outgrown that team in that league. So Philly are very excited, and again, they think that they're getting quite a good player.
Can I ask you real quick, Tom? Do you have a pen in your hand?
Do I have a pen in my hand?
Are you furiously clicking that pen?
That was me.
I thought that was Doyle.
Yeah, I was clicking my mouse. Sorry about that.
Okay.
He's trying to send me a message in Morse code. I'm sorry, Doyle. I did not catch that.
This is how you pronounce his name? All right, Doyle. Sorry, I interrupted you there. It was just throwing me off. I had to ask.
When can we see this guy in Philadelphia? Because it seems like he's going to be a part of Hungary's Euro squad, and then the summer window opens, I believe, for MLS in early July. So is the soonest we could see him?
No, that's so. It's obviously very difficult to project these things with the embassies and everything that comes with visa and travel. But the best case scenario is he's able to get here and maybe play those 2 games before the June break for the Union, and then
really
go with Hungary. Again, that's nothing definite, and it's just that's not something the club has ruled out. And if they're being optimistic, they think that that would be able to happen. It really just depends on when he gets his visa on this side cleared. The paperwork has been in the works for a little while. This isn't something that they just filed today. The deal has been in the works for a while, and it would have happened sooner if Honved were mathematically safe from relegation before the final day of the season. So again, they are hopeful, but as they saw with like Stuart Finley, they're not too happy with how the immigration and embassy situations are going, and they don't have high hopes. But they'll do what they can, and maybe we'll get to see them before the Euros.
Big win for the Union this weekend against the Fire, a win that they should get to be in the position that they want to be in. Can we just kind of openly speculate here about where this guy's going to play and how they're going to use him? I mean, they've got a lot of attacking pieces. Corey Burke comes in this weekend and scores a beautiful goal and is a big influence. And we know he has that in him. You have Kasper Shabilko. You have Sergio Santos. You have certainly Anthony Fontana's waiting there in the wings. Jamiro Montero delivered the dime to Burke. He can play the 10. Like, is this guy a second forward? Is he a 10? What is he in Jim Curtin's mind, in your opinion?
Yeah, this guy's a 10. I mean, he's pretty versatile the same way that Leon Flock is, in that he can play a number of positions. He can play 10, he can play second striker, or, even if they want to be super, super aggressive, put him at an 8. But, I think that he comes into their strongest 11, at the 10 with Jamiro Montero and Ali Bedoya behind him, and Jose Martinez kind of sitting at the 6. And then, all of a sudden there were a lot of talks of, they had maybe a slow start to the offseason. They didn't bring a ton of, senior players. And then Flock and now Gazdag come in, and it looks like Anthony Fontana and Leon Flock are going to be second choice / rotate, like guys who aren't in their strongest XI. Like it's kind of wild how quickly they rebuilt without making a ton of signings. In that they're really deep and really strong yet again.
Tom,
I love you.
What we've seen.
The XI is XI a new? I've never heard XI. That's incredible, Tom. You're starting. Yeah, you're starting something new.
That's Gen Z slang, I guess. Tom, does this signal a shift away from the Philadelphia Union sort of ethos of promoting the kids from within and getting the Brendan Aaronsons and Mark McKenzies of the world on the field? Or is this just, look, we made $15 million on player transfers this year, and if our next generation of academy talent is as good as we want them to be, they're going to have to earn minutes and beat out guys like this?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. They're still extremely committed to the academy. That's why they kind of punt on the draft. That's why there's only been a handful of signings this offseason. They easily could have went out and, tried to spend, say, get a $5 million player, or, we got a bunch of money, like let's grab, 5 or 6 guys. But, they're doing it deliberately. They're trying to find the right balance in, they're not just going to play a homegrown 11 or XI as we say it now. But it's not like they're just going to say, screw it, we're going to play academy kids, or we're going to block these guys. Like, you have to earn it the same way that, Brendan Aronson and Mark McKenzie earned it, despite a couple veterans, or I guess in Brendan's case, on top of Marco Fabian, like he kind of elbowed away Anthony Fontana, who theoretically was supposed to be next in line. So this is kind of just part of the plan and part of kind of development strategy. And another kind of part of that is this year's crop of homegrowns were so young. Like Paxton Aronson has gotten like a lot of headlines because of his last name and because of his family. But kind of everyone I've talked to is like, look, he's in the first team a year and a half before Brendan was. And like Brendan didn't it took him a little bit or whatever to kind of find his place in the team. Like, yeah, we thoroughly believe in these kids. Like we believe that they have great potential and great talents. It's just they might not be ready right now. So I think that it's more about the fact of this crop needs a little bit more time to kind of blood into the first team, and probably some time with the second team or whenever that can happen. So it's not surprising that they have made a couple of additions to kind of their strongest positions or their strongest lineup, but they still firmly believe in their model.
This feels like an Ernst Tanner signing 100%, going to find a guy in like a lower team in a smaller league who's overperforming, plucking him out. He fits a need for the Union. You got to be jacked if you're a Union fan to see both this, like the two sides of the coin. One side is, McKenzie and Aronson and the youth movement and the continual sort of like pipeline of talent, but when it's not ready, to see the club go out and say, okay, we will spend money, we will tap into these scouting networks, we will do the things it takes to continue to be at the top of this league. And for Union fans who, let's be honest, went through many years of not being at the top of this league, this has got to be wildly encouraging. A lot of depth, a lot of quality on this squad. Good for them, good for Jim Curtin. Love watching the Union right now. They're at number 4, 3 spots up. Tom Bogert, Tommy Scoops. Go check him on Twitter. Tom Bogert, go check him at MLSsoccer.com. Does great work covering this entire league. Tom, I appreciate you, man, and I'm sorry for accusing you of clicking your pin.
That's anxiously. Me. That was all me.
Yeah.
All
right, just sabotage from Doyle.
I know. Let's keep it rolling, man. Orlando City at 5. Doyle, they got a draw. Nani got a goal. He's a little bit in form. Feels to me like they're just kind of maintaining as they figure out what's to come as far as personnel. Pereira's back, so that's nice. Things will start to change with that. Center forward's still a question. But yeah, look, everything's fine in Lions zone, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen this from Oscar Pereira teams in the past, right? As you're sort of figuring out the attacking piece, just make sure you're hard to beat. And then once you're hard to beat, make sure you start to be pretty good with the ball. And I think that's where Orlando City are right now. They're really hard to beat. They're hard to break down, even though they have had some issues with central defender availability. Even though they're working, they're starting left back into back into the rotation, and João Moutinho certainly showed some of that rust on the defensive side this weekend, even though they've been missing Ori Russell. Even though all of that, they have been hard to beat, and then they have been, I think, pretty dynamic on the ball, using the ball to pull teams apart and get into the final third. Once they've gotten to the final third, they have not been dynamic at all. They just are not creating many chances, and they're not creating high-level chances. And that's the hardest thing to do, especially when you've had, your DP number 10 shuttling in and out, especially when it looks like there's a little bit of a, breakout season hangover for Chris Mueller.
I was just going to ask about Mueller. Where is he right now? I did not catch this game this weekend, so demerits for me. But what's going on with Chris Mueller? I mean, last year he was just an absolute revelation.
Yeah, honestly, it just looks like he's not sharp. And I know that's kind of a BS way of saying it, but like there's nothing tactically wrong with it. It's just like his touch isn't there. He's a little bit hesitant at times. And it's the same thing for everybody who's been playing at center forward, whether it's Pato, and obviously Tesho Akindele has gotten most of the minutes there. You could get away with that against Cincinnati and drop the 3-0 on them, but against a good team like NYCFC, you leave yourself in a situation where despite controlling the game for 75 minutes, you can end up being on the back foot and giving up a result and almost taking a loss. So it's the foundation is there. Obviously, they missed Daryl DK. I know we had Julia Poe on last week, and she said that the intent for Orlando City is to get him back for the season. I still do not believe that. That's like when you sell something, you're like, oh, look, I really want to keep this. Actually, it's like it's in my family. I never want to give it up. But look, if you're gonna offer $15 million for it, I might let go. Right. So put the money on the table, and then I think we'll have a different answer to those questions. Right. And then and that's gonna end up being the hardest thing to solve. Like jumping from good team to great team is the hardest thing to do in this sport. And right now, everything I've seen from Orlando City tells me they're going to be a good team. Whether they get those pieces right in the attacking third and, their kill patterns in attack right, that is going to be the jump from good to great. All right, number 5, Orlando City. Didn't move at all this week in the power rankings. Drew 1-1 with NYCFC, who are above them in the power rankings and above them in the standings currently. Let's now go to Elizabeth PEHOTA. She does great work with the Revolution. They are second in the Eastern Conference. They are 6th in these power rankings, and they dropped 4 spots, Elizabeth, because they lost in Nashville. Nashville's first win of the season. First of all, thanks for joining us. Great to chat. Second, what'd you see in this game? Oh, Elizabeth, you're muted.
Am I on now?
You are here.
Great. Well, thank you to you both for having me on. I appreciate you taking the time, and I'm excited to chat the Rose with you.
It's your time. We're here for 2 hours, so we're just happy to have a little bit of your time, Elizabeth. Tell me what you saw in this loss to Nashville. Are there reasons for concern in Revsland?
I don't think there's reason for concern right now. I think that game was unquestionably the worst that we've seen the Revs play so far this season. They were really, really strong through the first 3 games, and they just looked a little bit different in that match. And Arena said post-game that the first 30 to 35 minutes, he thought the group was outplayed in basically every position on the field, but they started to come back and get a little bit of a response. You saw Adam Buxa, he was able to create some opportunities. He had that goal that was called offside. So you did see some positives later in the game. But overall, they're looking to just move forward to this Philly game. It's a good week for a quick turnaround so that they can bounce back and find a response. And I think the next 2 games, so they're playing at Philadelphia tomorrow on Wednesday, the reigning Supporter Shield winners. And then on Sunday, they're hosting the defending MLS Cup champions, Columbus Crew SC. So I think what we're really going to see now is the character in this team and how they respond to that loss at Nashville, because they have 2 really tough opponents coming up in a short stretch of time. You mentioned Adam Buxa, and it looks like a reprise of 2020 in a lot of ways, because he keeps finding good chances, he keeps getting to the good spots, and he keeps not putting the ball in the net. How much rope does he have with Bruce Arena and with the Revs? Because sooner or later, you need your number 9 to start being a regular goal scorer. I think that you've seen a big improvement, actually, in Buxa from the 2020 to 2021 seasons. And you take a look at the first few games. I know this past game was not the Revs' strongest one, but he had that goal at Chicago, came in a really critical moment when he was able to cut the deficit in half and help them get that point on the road to start out the season. You take a look at that game at Nashville even, and when that goal was called offsides, he was able to put himself in those positions. And I think we're seeing a more confident Buxa this year. Coach Arena has basically told us that, listen, Buxa came in last season at a really awkward time. You know, he's moving to a new country, he's joining a new club and a new league. And then to top it off, he's coming in the middle of a pandemic. So it took him a little while to get acclimated. And he said they didn't expect him to come in right away and be that number 9 that's banging in goals. They knew there was going to be a little bit of a learning curve. And with the pandemic and given those factors, it kind of looks like it stretch that out a little bit more. But I think that we've seen some promising starts through him. He looks really, really good in training. And I think that we're going to continue to see him to grow throughout this season. And I also think that Coach Arena expects him to be banging in goals as we move forward. I think he's definitely going to top his performance last year.
There's nothing that Bruce hates more, Elizabeth, than formation talk. So it's time to talk about formations. He doesn't think that it matters at all. It's just about performance and about the way the players approach a given situation. But I do think the idea of Buxa and Bo and a 4-4-2 versus a 4-2-3-1 is going to be a topic that follows this team around a good bit. Where do you think Bruce will end up, and how do you get the best of both Buxa and Bo if they're both on the field?
I think it's going to be a little bit of trial and error from here on out. I know Bruce Arena does hate formation talk, as you bring up, and doesn't really like to discuss it. But I think it's going to be a little bit of trial and error. You have some new players who are coming in. They brought in winger Arnar Traustason, who's only a few games in at this point, 3 weeks of training under his belt. So I think fitting him into the mix is going to kind of play into that as well. And I also think that getting the best of Bo and Buxa on the field has a lot to do with Carlos Gil as well. And we know that Gil is a strong player. We've seen that consistently. But now having him back in the mix for this season, I think having all 3 of them on the field and kind of figuring out how to get the best out of each other in the attack is going to be what's going to help this group in the final third of the season. I think there's a lot of positives that are going to be coming from this group, but it's just fitting those pieces together. And I think they're still in the process of figuring that out.
Who's the number 3, like, attacking goal scoring threat here? Because last year in the playoffs, we saw Tejan get in those positions. We see Teal Bunbury being dangerous. But right now, for me with the Revs, it just doesn't feel like who's the next guy? Who's the guy that frees up space for Gil, for Buxa, for Bo, who's an additional threat? It sort of feels like they're missing what they had in the playoffs in that regard.
You know, I think it's still early to kind of say who's that guy, but I think we've seen a lot of positive signs from Brandon Bai so far. I think he's been able to create some attacking chances. He's been able to get really forward and create opportunities. So my eye would definitely be on him moving forward in that role.
All right, Philadelphia, New England, 7:30 p.m. Eastern this Wednesday, MLS Live on ESPN+. Elizabeth PEHOTA, you can follow her on Twitter at PEHOTA, PEHOTA. Elizabeth, great to meet you. We will do this again in the near future, all right?
Looking forward to it. Thanks so much for having me on, guys.
Of course, of course. New England at number 6, at number 7 to keep things moving right along. Our LAFC. I don't know if we got Max Bretos in here. I know
he's listening.
He had a busy day. Oh, Max, you're here. Where are you, man? Have you requested to speak? I'm looking. Oh, bingo. Listener, invite to speak. Max, you are in. Can you hear us? Here he is. Ah.
Good day, sir.
Good day to you.
Gotcha. How you doing, Max?
Fantastic to be here. Before I go any further, Doyle, I was listening to the podcast this week, and I just want to say that Goss was right about Gonzalo Higuain. Too many misses up front. I'm going to be a little bit more concerned.
I'm complete. Here. Yeah, I'm just going to pile on Doyle now. Come on, Gonzalo. We need more from you, man. We need
has
more.
2 goals and an assist in 3 games.
Are you watching the games or just looking at the stats, Doyle? Just throwing it out there. No, I'm just messing with you.
I do both.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. All right, let's talk LAFC, Max.
Yeah, Max, we know you're watching the games with LAFC. They were good but flat at the same time this past weekend, I thought. Is that a fair way of putting it?
I think it's pretty fair. And at the half of the game, I went outside of Dignity Hill Sports Park and I saw John Thornton. He said that was the best that they've played. And then that was the first half. They played even better in the second half. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, all the things on the checklist you would mark for LAFC on their behalf, not being able to score these goals is troubling. I mean, we all know it's a complex system, and that final third, breaking down defenders, that final pass, finding that space or whatever is required to break open a defense hasn't come around thus far. So there's a moral victory there, but obviously talking to supporters of LAFC, there's not many when you lose to the Galaxy. So it's that's the unfortunate part. I mean, even at the end of the game, you could see the Galaxy were worn out by the pace of LAFC. But again, that's not going to get it done in the big picture, especially when you have a game against Seattle coming up. We knew it was a challenging schedule, and it's a long season, and you follow the model of the Sounders in years past, where you may ease into a campaign and be there at the end. And I think LAFC would like to. There's a lot of things that haven't fallen into place just yet, but I think they'll mount on some pressure onto their shoulders if in a couple rounds they're heading into the month of June, not in the playoff positions.
Currently not in the playoff positions, 10th in the Western Conference on 5 points from 4 games. They dropped 4 spots in these Week 4 power rankings. I'm just going to go straight to Carlos Vela, Max, because I think LAFC understand the way that they want to play. They're able to execute on that style of play, but it doesn't feel to me like right now they have the ultimate difference maker to elevate that style of play. What is Carlos Vela's status right now? It feels like breadcrumbs. I don't feel like I'm getting much. There's a quad issue of some sort, but that's about all that we know at this point.
I welcome people to ask that in the press conferences. So I work for the club, so I don't pry too much, and I haven't called a game for LAFC yet. But I don't think people really asked the question about Carlos Vela. So it's been very mysterious for all of us. But it's concerning that after last season, there's injuries around him again this year. I mean, it's just you don't want to see, after being so ironclad in 2019, where he held up through the entire campaign despite, playing every game and getting into a lot of 50-50s, etc., and being, the target of some challenge. But it's after 2 seasons where, he just hasn't been able to get on track. It is frustrating. I think people can rightfully say, what's going on with his health and why is he not putting game after game together? So it's still a mystery. It's obviously a lot more serious than anyone thought. And, he substituted in the game in the opener. And you would have to say being precautious is one thing. But when he returns, he's going to want to start. He's going to have to go full bore for the 90 minutes. He's not going to be someone who's going to come in for 30 minutes and eat back into it. But watching the team, I think more than ever, he really is the key, because with Corey Baird there and the way he and Diego Rossi move, you need the guy to get that ball to these two, to find the space. And we saw it for a little bit in that first game. And I think even more so than years past, Carlos Vela holds the key to turn this team around where they can score goals and get results.
I'm just desperate to see him back in this team for my own personal reasons. I had LAFC at the very, very top to start the year, and that was under the assumption that we were going to get some semblance of the Carlos Vela that we've seen in years past, some semblance of the Carlos Vela that we saw in CCL last fall/winter when he was not fit and was just tearing teams apart. Give us a quick preview as you look ahead to the game coming up for LAFC on the weekend. You mentioned it. It's maybe the biggest of the weekend. It's on FS1, the final game of Week 5, 9:30 p.m. Eastern, Seattle hosting LAFC. What do you want to see in this game from LAFC? What do you think Bob Bradley wants to see?
I think there's been an opportunity for fullbacks, and we're waiting on Chiqui Palacios. He came out at halftime of the last game, and I think there's a little frustration. That's probably too strong of a word, because he's a young player, and he's going to get there, but getting behind the right side, getting the cross in. We saw Marcos Farfan come in, and I thought did a really nice job. Luke, they're key. We haven't seen a lot of crosses come in, and when they're hit in well, whether off a corner kick or in open play, they make a big difference. So I think we'd like that. I'd like to see a little bit more of Kim Moon Hwan, who was very impressive in a small, short spell in the Galaxy game. Also, I don't know I doubt he would start, but maybe comes in it right back and provides that little oomph as well. But I think that's the position that also can really get this team motoring if we look at this game, in all likelihood that they probably don't play Carlos Vela. If he does play, it's a wonderful surprise, but after we all kind of expected he could be in there for the Galaxy game, we'll hold off on that, because they want to make sure he's 100%. That is clear. And they're looking at the season saying, It's a long run. We want you there when it matters. So no half measures. You're not going to come in here unless you're 100%. So see that. And again, it's the third member, whoever comes in alongside Rossi and Baird. I would like maybe see Danny Masovsky get a sniff there, potentially in this Seattle game. But those are the two positions that really have to see. The left back is going to be interesting, and who partners Rossi and Baird.
Denny Musovsky Hive, stand up. Me and you, Max. We're right here, baby. Press, Danny. Be opportunistic. I love you, man. Last one for you. I didn't really feel sort of the gnashing of teeth, and maybe it's because I'm far away and I'm stuck in my soccer cave in my basement in KC, from LAFC fans after losing El Tráfico. What do you think this result meant to the fan base, to the club?
This game is everything. And look, I try to talk them off the times. I go, look, we'll get them again. It's a couple more games. Unfortunately, losing this one and the way they did it, obviously getting the tie late with Diego Rossi to relinquish that off a mistake. We say this a lot with LAFC, goals that could have been avoided, but at some point they're goals and you have to live with them and you've got to find a way to avoid them. But this is such a huge fixture, and it's been pretty amazing to see how it's escalated so quickly and how important it becomes for these fan bases. I mean, I really felt, the emotions were really high at the game. We were sitting there with some of the LAFC employees, and there were some LAFC fans there. And then at the end of the game, the Galaxy fans turned, and there was like shouting matches, etc. It's growing by leaps and bounds. So you don't want to lose this game. They'll get 2 more shots at them. LAFC has got to swallow that pill for the time being and hope they can get revenge at the end of the summer.
All right, Max Bretos, follow him on Twitter. Follow everything he does with LAFC. Max, I'm guessing that you are going to do some Copa Libertadores this week, so good luck with that, man.
I have the strongest facing Barcelona of Guayaquil today.
Love it. I'm a big the strongest guy.
The strongest and always ready. Bolivia, bring.
All right, man. Great to chat with you. Enjoy your time down there. LAFC at number 7. At number 8 are the San Jose Earthquakes. Had a big result thanks to none other than Chris Wondolowski against RSL. Up 2 spots are San Jose. We have Brian Dunseth here with us to talk through this game. He was calling it on the RSL side. Dunny, you there? Dunny, did I not invite you?
Dunny's probably hiking up a mountain, but I'll take this at the top. The Quakes weren't great for 70 minutes in this game. They went to an RSL team that has been playing really well, and I thought RSL did a very nice job of mostly controlling the way the game was played. And then the final 20 minutes, obviously spurred by Wando coming on, the game changed. And it was a lot of it was Wando, but a lot of it was putting Eric Rametti on that back line and getting him to drive the game forward and open up spaces by beating guys off the dribble, collapsing the RSL defense, and then getting San Jose into the final third. And once San Jose gets into the final third and this guy's on the field, you know what's going to happen. And he certainly seemed like he knew what was going to happen. Dunny, you're about Wando's age. Are you thinking about lacing him back up and getting back out in the field?
Doyle, I'm like 8 years older than Wando, and I cannot believe how agile this young man still is. Yeah, listen, when I watched this game, I was excited to see what San Jose Earthquakes looked like. I am one that I'm still trying to figure out for Matias Almeida and the way that he tries to play his style of football, which is so unique in Major League Soccer. I used last year as the outlier because I want to see over the course of the season how this team handles the wear and tear and the fatigue over the entire course of the season, like what happened back in 2019. And to your point, Doyle, I think once we saw a Real Salt Lake team handling the way that San Jose played right around the hour mark when he made those 3 changes, when he brought in Salinas and Albicasis and Rios, he tried to transform the way that they were playing, not necessarily tactically, but personnel-wise, and moving and chopping and changing players all over the place. And like you said, it wasn't until Wando came in where I was in the middle of the broadcast saying, please stay touch tight. You know what's going to happen. And what happened? Chris Wondolowski has that kind of magnetic feel for getting in the right space at the right time and single-handedly took apart Real Salt Lake, took 2 points, and then took the full 3 points.
Are they a good team, San Jose, or are they a fun team, or are they both?
I'd say both. Yeah, I think they're both, because I think the one thing that we always talk about with San Jose, and I know you guys have talked about this before, it doesn't matter which manager you talk to, which is the upcoming opponent for San Jose. You know, you can have your football principles, right? And I know you guys just got done talking about Bruce and hating about talking about tactics, and it's 11 versus 11, and you just got to score more goals than the opponent. I get all that. But when you're playing San Jose, it just seems like you have two rules of thumb. You can either kind of stick to your the way you want to play your principles, or you can try to somewhat play man versus man like they do. And I think that's why we see teams get taken apart, why DC got taken apart a couple weeks ago in San Jose, or you see teams try to find that unique balance of understanding spatial awareness and try to keep the game in front of them. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, you're right. They're fun, they're exciting, and I'm not sure in the competition of the West where they're going to end up.
Cade Cowell, hold on. Yeah. Cade Cowell, you made the comparison. Is that yours? Okay. All right. I have a lot of thoughts on what Cade Cowell, his vibe, and it can go a lot of different directions, all of them wonderful. But I do see the comparison that you threw out there on this RSL broadcast to Alphonso Davies in the burst, in the ability to just make other professional athletes look like statues, look like second-rate, like nobodies. I mean, he runs past people, he muscles people. He's 17 years old, doing it to grown men whose job it is not to allow him to do that to them. And we talked about it a little bit earlier with ZAKUANI. The thing that I like the most right now about Cade Cowell, the athleticism we knew he had. It's the level up and in a rapid period of time where you see that quick, like, exponential improvement into things that you wondered whether they were in his game or not. Like, those are the things that I see that Alphonso Davies did, and he's still leveling up to a crazy amount. We don't know where Cade Cowell's going to end up, and I'm not trying to say he's going to be at Bayern Munich winning Champions League, but you do see some hints. Walk us through that comparison in your mind and what Cade Cowell can be.
They're very similar physical specimens, and I know that's kind of a broad stroke, and we always talk about when guys have kind of the strength and athleticism, because obviously it's the intelligence that puts them in the right space at the right time for them to capitalize. I look at, and by the way, Hercules Gomez tweeted out the picture of him as a 17-year-old versus Cade Cowell as a 17, and I think Herc mixed up his 14-year-old picture versus a 17-year-old picture. I just think, I mean, when you look at this kid, he's not a kid. I mean, he looks like a 26-year-old that has been lifting and has been on protein shakes.
I think he has been. What is 4 a.m. they were saying that he wakes up to lift?
Well, good on him. I need some of that. Get whatever he's taken, give me those shots, because I just can't. I struggle to comprehend when I just look at his body mass to be a 17-year-old. But then, you know, when you're watching that burst, specifically intently watching him during that broadcast, you know, in the beginning, Eric Holt is like 24 at this stage and built like Craig Weibel always wished he was built like, and was always kind of banging and leaning on him. And after the first two challenges, Cade then decided, okay, I'm going to preemptively strike. And he was hitting early before the ball got to him to create that half step. And I just thought, in the moment, you're seeing these like little learning moments, these little intangibles that he's recognizing, okay, I get the body up today, or okay, today I've got to use my pace to kind of create a space or two. And I know we'll talk about Wando, but I just think being around Chris Wondolowski is the best case scenario. And I was trying to make the argument during the game that I think because San Jose plays the way they're playing, it's actually the best case scenario for Cade, because I don't know if he's a number 9. I don't know if he's an off the shoulder. I don't know if he's a wide player. I don't know if he's an attacker, but he has kind of the ability to play any of these roles. And I think because San Jose is so open, it allows him to kind of be a little bit more dangerous than what he would be maybe in kind of the prim and proper 4-4-2 or the 4-3-2-1 or whatever tactics the team sets up.
Let's get Wanda before we let you go here. Just an appreciation of the man, of the moment. RSL fans know a little something about him because he scored more goals against them than anybody else. What is it, in your opinion, that makes Wando so special, so timeless, so able to continue doing what he does?
Let's start with his health, obviously, to stay on the field. I think his intelligence for the way that he plays the position, his movement is incredible in the box. And I thought, Doyle, you did a great job kind of pointing out on the tap in how he made 3 different runs to find himself in that space between Glad and Holt and in front of Ochoa. He has a magnetic ability to kind of be in the right place at the right time. And I remember maybe the one person that said it best, and it was Jason Christ one time, talking about Wando, and it was that it was the frequency in which he keeps his shots on frame. You know, whether you're talking about headers or you're talking about left foot or you're talking about right foot, it's not. And I know somewhere there's going to be some Twitter mention about, yeah, what do you do against Belgium at the World Cup? It's not. Someone put the research up. He scored 86 goals, I think, since that game against Belgium. I know that's going to haunt his legacy, but the reality is he's a poacher. He's a goal scorer. He's a creator. He's a finisher. And I know people hate his celebration and the fact that he's antagonistic with the referee and the opponents, and he's always got something to say.
I hate those people that hate his celebration.
He's got the Jesse Marsh in him. He's always got something to say about something. But he's just a fantastic player. And for a storyline of a kid coming out of a low-level college and fighting through and playing in the days of the reserve leagues back in Major League Soccer, I can't think of a better player for coaches to show their attacking players what to do and how to find space, because I think he's one of the most well-rounded strikers of all time in Major League Soccer.
Chris Wondolowski's legacy is that a kid from Chico State that was a reserve player for years, that couldn't get on the field, that blew this league off by the doors when he did get on it, was in a position to score a massive goal in a World Cup knockout round game. That's what his legacy is, folks. If you can't see that and you can't appreciate that in that story, then you and I are not going to see on the same page on a lot of things, I think. Maybe it's an emotional moment for people. I was there. I witnessed it in person. Just for him to be there is incredible. Brian Dunseth, thank you so much, man. San Jose at 8, up 2 spots in these power rankings. At 9, El Tráfico winners in 3rd place in the Western Conference, the LA Galaxy. Chicharito does it again. Pamela Garcia, I don't know if you are out there, but I know that you often comment on the fact that I have an LA Galaxy shrine, and I am opening this forum up to you right now to potentially gloat about an El Tráfico victory for your boys. So if you are actively listening right now, I've invited you to speak. You just have to accept that. In the meantime, Doyle, what did this mean to the Galaxy? It seems like everything.
I like that you're going pure Lord of the Flies here and inviting the fans into trash talk.
Oh, bingo.
Pamela,
what's
the floor
up?
is yours.
Hello. Yes, I'm still hoping that Chris Hibble is actually giving you a Chicharito candle.
Oh, he hasn't ever gotten it to me. Chris Heibel, I need you to hook that up. We did play golf here in Kansas City, so you know I love them. But I self-source my own shrine candles for all LA Galaxy matters. Tell me what this game and this victory means to you. Tell me what it feels like to see Chicharito come good.
I guess it was an amazing atmosphere, and I know a lot of the players post-game said that comeback does not happen without the players and just the atmosphere that was around. So I think that was one of the biggest challenges that we had last year. One, we didn't have the best coach. Now we have Greg Vanney. And 2, just not having the fans there was probably not the best for the team that isn't as optimistic and isn't as motivated as this Galaxy team is this year.
Pamela, one of the things that we've talked about with Chicharito is his optimism as a player this year, making runs for that 1% chance to, that the ball stays in bounds like it did against Miami, or the team pressing in the 85th minute against an LAFC team that had been kind of controlling the game, and then Jonah making a 70-yard run to get the game-winning goal. This is not something that you as a fan have seen from a Galaxy team since like 2014. And it's got to, I don't know, kind of like renew your spirit a little bit, right?
Absolutely. And like we've talked to the FO and we've demanded that this is not good enough. And we've talked to the players and said, we need more. You have to fight for the crest. The 5 stars mean something, and it needs to mean something to you, not just to us. So it's been very relevant this year that it's more of a brotherhood, and they have spoken how they need to act more as a family and play as a family. And you can tell when Cameron Dunbar fought for that ball in the 80th minute, that's what how you can keep winning games.
tell me before we let you go here, how much it means to beat LAFC to you, and what it means to see Chicharito basically shed tears for this Galaxy crest.
It feels amazing, right? So we want every the best team in LA, but the biggest team worldwide as well.
All right, there you have it, Pamela. Thank you always
Big
for
ambitions.
encouraging my LA Galaxy shrindom here. Up 3 spots to number 9 are the Galaxy. Let's go on to number 10. Chris Reifer is here. You know him, covering the Portland Timbers for a long time, opining on the Portland Timbers for a long time, correcting me via DMs for a long time. At number 10, down 2 spots, losing the Cascadia match at home against the Sounders. Chris, what are your initial reactions from this match, this result?
Well, hey, good morning, guys. I think the first reaction is that the hall pass just expired. The Timbers have, for good reasons, been given a little bit of a pass for their MLS performance to date through the first 4 weeks of the season or so. With CCL now over, with some of the injuries starting to get resolved, although they seem to be replacing those as quickly as they solve them. That hall pass just has to expire. And so you understand the loss against Seattle. The legs were always going to fall off in that game at some point, and they did around the hour. Losing Adanella obviously changed the game as well. And then the penalty madness was a big factor. But look, at the end of the day, they lost 2-1 to Seattle. That's something the Timbers never like to do under any circumstances. And now they're through 4 weeks of the MLS season sitting on 3 points. That's not an unfamiliar position for the Timbers. They've basically been there the last 3 years around this time of year. So nobody's hitting the panic button by any means, but they've also gone on a run around this time in each of the last 3 years, and they need to do that again this year.
Chris, I get what you're saying, and I don't disagree, but I will argue that for the first 65, 70 minutes of that game, Portland was playing really good soccer, like really encouraging soccer, especially considering that they came off that 90 minutes at altitude midweek. Like they looked good, even though the final touch wasn't really there.
I'll even go a step further. Yeah, I'll even go a step further. I think the middle 45 was the best the Timbers have played this year. They had some problems in the first 15 minutes or so, allowing runouts from Seattle's wingbacks, which is what Seattle wants to do. Yep. And they got a bit of a let off by Rudy Diaz missing a couple uncharacteristic finishes that he probably normally puts away. They easily could have been 2-0 down a quarter hour in. But for the next 45 minutes, the Timbers were tremendous. I mean, it was half-field soccer at times. Their balance was really good. That prevented a lot of the runouts. It put them in really good spots to be able to repress and to be able to recirculate. They started to get a little bit less direct, which is not sort of in their DNA under Gio Savarese, but that allowed them to start chipping away at the Sounders' low block and to start creating better chances. One of the stories from the Timbers from an attacking perspective this year has been that they've gotten into a lot of good spots, but they haven't created a lot of good chances from that. And you started to see them solve that problem. And then, all heck broke loose. I don't know the rules about swearing on the internet.
I think on this you can say hell. As someone who's hosting this particular
hell is real on this.
Hell
show.
Is definitely real.
Yes, exactly. So all hell broke loose, at the hour with the penalty craziness and all of that. And so I think that last half hour probably goes into a little bit of a different category. But the Timbers absolutely have good reason to be encouraged from the way they played in the middle of that game. Discouraging,
though, I'm going to cut you off here. Discouraging are the injuries. What is the timetable that you've heard for Sebastian Blanco, for Steve Clark, and now with Larisse Mabiala out as well? Like, what is the latest update on all of those guys?
No update on Mabiala yet, just because it's so fresh. That said, I thought Bill Tuiloma stepped in and was tremendous. Bill Tuiloma, by the way, the Timbers' current Golden Boot leader.
Just let him take the free kicks until Blanco comes back. The free kicks are Bill's.
Diego Valeri should probably take those free kicks.
Well, not penalty kicks.
So, I actually think you're talking about Bill Tuiloma, Andrea Pirlo's unknown love child, apparently.
I liked how the Sounders put up the wall and then like moved the wall away from where Bill eventually hit it. Like that wall setup was a little bit off. A little bit off. And also Raul Ruiz has to be the guy laying down. Like, come on, not your number 9. Put like a water carrier down there who can just take one in the face, no big deal.
Hat tip to Jeremiah O'Shawn on that point on the wall. Steve Clark, I think, is a little bit of a mystery as well. The Timbers haven't been very specific about him, and that's obviously a huge question. If that's going to be a significant layoff, they need to find some other solution now with Clark, Aljaž Ivacic, and Jeff Adenella all on the injured list at goalkeeper. Sebastian Blanco has been close to a return for 2 months. So I would say he is close to a return. Whether that means he's going to be returning next week at San Jose in a difficult game, or whether he's going to be returning after the June break, I can't tell you with any confidence right now.
All right. I think that's it from us. Thank you, Chris, for sticking around here, making sure you're here for number 10 at Portland. They're down 2 spots from 12. Here's a reminder for you. If you've missed any of the top 10, we put the top 10 on YouTube. Here's how they ran down. Seattle at 1, Columbus up 2 spots via 3-1 win against DC at 2, New York City at 3, top of the East are they right now. Union at 4, had a nice conversation with Tom Bogert about their new number 10, Orlando 5, New England 6, LAFC somehow, after losing to the Galaxy, above the Galaxy, San Jose at 8, LA Galaxy at 9, and the Portland Timbers at 10. Of course, you will know that the power rankings are a mix of things, a mix of perception, a mix of biases, a mix of the table, a mix of recent results. It's all very, very fun, and we have to get rolling here, Doyle, because you have